Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, October 23rd. It's our 2025 World Series preview, part 1 of 2. We got Derek Van Riper, Sarah's Trevor May here with you today, and we're going to dig into the tale of the tape between the Blue Jays and Dodgers, look at some key areas. We're going to take a look at this Dodgers rotation and compare it back to the 95 Braves. I've seen those comparisons popping up in various graphics and across the socials. We're going to dig into some of the key matchups in the series as well. Some of the more difficult problems to be solved over the course of the series. We're also going to have our X factors for the series a little bit later on in the show. Let's get started with the tale of the tape. I think it's funny because there's 5 key areas, right? There's the rotation, the bullpen, power, contact, and then defense. And the Jays win 3 out of 5, which I think by my math means the Blue Jays are in fact a better team than the Dodgers based on this handy little graphic that was a part of the story. Of course, as you explained with words, which you do very well, that's not entirely the case because these categories are not properly weighted within the graphic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two most important, if you're going to ask me, are power and probably rotation. Although, in today's game, it's about 50-50 between the rotation and the bullpen. But then you look at the slider for the bullpen, and I would say that that's the closest slider there is on that page. If there was a 51, I almost, what I tried to put? I tried to put a question mark or an even, but every time I did that, it showed for some reason like a maple leaf logo. So I just leaned into it and said, fine, Blue Jays, but it's like 51-49. So, and I would say that the rotation advantage is much more for the Dodgers than 51-49. So if you're taking an entire pitching staff, I'd say it's like 60-40. For the Dodgers, the power is pretty comfortably in the Dodgers area, and I think those are the two most important scenarios there.
Yeah, quantifying that just in terms of regular season power output, the Dodgers hit 244 homers, the Blue Jays hit 191. The contact difference you referred to, the Jays led the league with a 17.8% strikeout rate. Dodgers kind of closer to the middle of the pack at 21.9% this year. The rotation difference, I think, is not necessarily highlighted properly by the stats from the regular season, Trevor, because the Dodgers' rotation was really banged up for most of the year. I mean, the thing that really jumps off the page when you look back is that Yoshinobu Yamamoto by far led the Dodgers in innings. It's like 173 and 2/3, but Snell, 61 and a third, Glasnow, 90 and a third, both dealt with shoulder inflammation that knocked them out for multiple months. Ohtani was returning from his second Tommy John surgery and the shoulder surgery in his non-throwing arm. That really put him in a rehab position throughout this year. So how do you appropriately adjust, and we've seen it somewhat in the postseason, for just how different the Dodgers rotation is today than it was for most of the regular season?
It's hard to do, especially when you usually run off how these guys have played during the season. So I especially with like Glasnow and Snell, like they have track records, right? And it's not like most Glasnow's ever thrown is 130 innings. So we got to always do this with him, right? Like you always have to expect that he's one of those guys that when he's pitching, he's going to be healthy, right? There's not going to be a long stretch where things are not feeling good for him where he's still pitching. It's just the way some guys, they don't have that window. They just know they're hurt or they're healthy. Those are the two options, and that's what's kind of bared out for him. And same with Snell. So like, I would just knowing that and just seeing how they make those decisions. That would heighten basically when they were pitching how well they pitched. That would demonstrate more because they are veterans and they pitched a lot. They have a lot of innings in their career. So, but if it were a rookie, if it Trey Savage, he's a big question mark still. Right? Like you don't know how he's going to handle a lot of different things. You can't do the same thing for him. So it's that's kind of how the weighting in my head changes. But now we've had, they played 3 series. We've seen these guys go through the rotation a few times, and you can confidently kind of establish what have you done for me lately as a good benchmark. And that's kind of what happens with starting pitcher as well. You do this in bunches. Very rarely are guys like really good, really bad, really good, really bad, really good. Like that is not what big league veterans are. It's usually a slope one way or the other that's more gradual. So if they are peaking you're more confident saying they will probably still have their good stuff going out next time. So that's kind of why we're feeling so good about the Dodgers right now, is just because of how well they've all done exactly what they were projected to do against, outside of maybe now I'll even say the Reds had a solid offense as well. It's not like they were just like a pushover. Like it's not like the Phillies are a tough offense. Like they've handled good hitting teams that bared it out all year really well, and they've used the same guys to do it. And these guys are like really dialed in at the same time. It's definitely a hand the baton to the next starting pitcher. Once you get in that kind of cycle, like how the Mariners do so well, all the nicknames and stuff. Okay, your turn. Okay, your turn. Like that is what the Dodgers are doing right now. So like, I know this is not as technical or maybe numbers related as well, but going off track record and then what we've seen lately in the last 2-3 weeks is what gives a lot of the confidence around them, I think.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the Jays, you Savage doing this in the early weeks of his big league career, maybe being their second best starter, and how you line them up, whether it's Savage or Bieber as the true number 2 right now. You could debate that if you want to, but they're both important in the series. And then having a future Hall of Famer and Max Scherzer getting back on the roster in the last round and pitching really well, which I thought was a surprise, that gives them a chance in holding up better than people think. But the challenge here is that this Dodgers lineup is also, I think, a lot more complete than the Seattle lineup that the Jays had to deal with throughout the ALCS.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. The Brewers lineup, makes as much contact as the Blue Jays do, and the Brewers lineup is very similar in terms of making contact and having power, and, not just being, one or the other. I guess I would take some of the individual hitters over Brewers hitters, but you could line these two lineups together and say that they have some similarities. So I don't know. On the other hand, there is something interesting about the Blue Jays that's different than the Brewers, and this kind of speaks to what Trevor's talking about like peaking at the right time. The Blue Jays as a team, they're all swinging faster now than they did in the first half. The only one who's not is Andres Jimenez, and he's swinging faster than he swung in the second half in the playoffs. So they're all swinging their fastest, and they've accrued like a group of hitters that makes good contact, and they're all swinging faster. So they've added power without sort of stepping in the bucket or doing silly things
contact,
like they've kept the contact and they're just swinging faster. So they're doing it with intent. They're doing it with selective aggression, and it's really working. So yeah, I mean, I would take the Blue Jays offense over the Brewers one, but I just wanted to point out that there were some similarities there.
What do you think the actual gap is between the two lineups for these teams right now? I think the biggest difference that we saw between the Jays and the Mariners in the ALCS was the bottom of the Jays lineup could do a little more damage and was also pesky, right? There's a distinct lack of swing and miss in that group of hitters where even if they're not hitting for power, they give you that possibility of grinding out some longer at bats. And that might be really important, right? We know the Dodgers have not trusted a large group of relievers. They have enough to have an A bullpen. The arrival of Roki Sasaki back there has been huge. We did see a little bit of Bonda in the NLCS. He's going to be important for them. Vesia is important for them. So they have two lefties they can turn to. The more I see Blake Treinen in the postseason, the less I'd want to see him as a Dodgers fan because it's been wobbly. Like the chances for the Brewers to get back into games were often happening with Treinen being involved. So
it's the worst command of his career. It's been all year, and it's been exacerbated in the playoffs.
And I think about the shortcomings of the Brewers in the NLCS and the similarities to their lineup and Toronto's lineup. I guess the main difference I see for the Jays is the Jays do have a little bit more thump. Right, that's the one extra nudge to that Jays lineup that presents a few unique wrinkles. So lineup to lineup, how do you think these two teams actually stack up?
Oh, this is interesting because I think they both have different strengths. But the one thing that is pretty stark about how the Dodgers have played in the playoffs is they haven't really scored a ton of runs. They are winning they are just grinding teams out. They've won so many close games, 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, by holding on and just making the right plays. Their veterans, like the experience that team has as a whole, with Max Muncy is a super smart defender. He's a super smart guy in the box. His at-bats will change drastically based on what his team needs, whether or not they need him on or they need a home run. He'll swing out of his shoes, or he'll just stand there and make you throw strikes until he can get on first. Like they have so much experience by so many great players that's been a huge advantage. Like putting on the wheel play and getting that play against the Phillies. Like there's just things that other teams wouldn't even think to do, because it's like they weren't even playing in the big leagues when that was a thing. Like so. Like there's certain things like that in the box that I think is an advantage for the Dodgers. But I would say in terms of ability to put up a crooked number and grab a ton of momentum against a pitcher quickly, the Blue Jays definitely have the advantage in that side, because, like you said, they're all swinging harder. It seems like they have found a nice sweet spot for how they approach each hitter, or how they scout a hitter, and like as a group they all decide we're going to be really aggressive today, or we're going to make this guy come to us and make those perfect pitches over and over and over and over and over again in order to get us out. And the only guy who really shut them down was Bryce Miller, because he was the only guy making those pitches, and he was the only guy that was not afraid of missing those spots, and everyone else was, and you could see it on their faces. So like that, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see like Blake Snell and how he's going to come at these guys, because he does not look bothered at all by anybody, and that is. The Blue Jays have to get you bothered a little bit. So I want to see how a guy who gets crazy swing and miss in the zone like Blake Snell does, and how like Nathan Lucas is going to handle that. That is going to be that's going to be a litmus test for me, because he just sits there and fouls ball. Him or like we can even use Ernie Clement, another guy who's just going to foul off. He's going to have a 9-10 pitch at bat if he wants, and he doesn't care if it results in a swinging bunt. Like it's just. Like, what does that look like? What does immovable force and unstoppable object look like? And how does Blake Snell then adjust? Like, is he then, because he's talked about it. He's been like, hey, Logan Webb said, just throw it in the box. He's like, and then he did, right? Like, that doesn't sound like a guy who is worried about getting swings and misses. It's just happening. And if that's the case, that's a major strength. So I would say the Blue Jays do have that. I think they are doing a better job of scoring that 3, 4, 5 run inning, and that's been huge in these playoffs. And no one has done that to the Dodgers yet. So, like, how do you stem that bleeding? And if the guy can't settle down, you get into the pen, it could be ugly, and it could be ugly fast. So if the Blue Jay, I think if the Blue Jay, however many games the Blue Jays win, they're probably going to win by a good number of runs. That's the way I feel it's going to be, just because they're dialed in. Everyone knows, like, I have this one hole. Make them hit that hole over and over and over and over. And if they can't hit it one time, I'm going to hammer that pitch. Yes, I'm talking about George Springer. That is the guy that does that better than anybody. And they're all following his lead. I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to tend towards using full season stats. I know I did, quote the changing bat speed for the Blue Jays, but I mean, if you look at the full season, the Dodgers hit 53 more homers. We're talking about the second and fourth best offenses by WRC plus. So we are picking the nits, but they hit 50 more homers. They scored like 30 some odd more runs. I think, if we're talking star power, I think they just have like one more star. And if we're talking bottom of the lineup, I think the Dodgers kind of go toe to toe with them. I mean, like, if you want to say you like Ernie Clement, well, Tommy Edman,
yeah,
is he Ernie Clement? I mean, he's pretty close,
and he did it
makes
already.
A lot of contact
in the playoffs last year. So we've seen him do it in this role as well, like in this spot. So
and Edman also is important, because this Dodgers team doesn't have as much bat speed as the Blue Jays, and it has a lot more tilt. And so we have a lot of guys who are low ball hitters on the Dodgers. Well, guess what? Edman, Muncy, and Ohtani are high ball hitters. So, Ohtani's an every ball hitter, but
yeah, he hits down and in
he's
pretty well.
Naturally high. High is the ball he hits the hardest. Those are the ones.
Right, because he has that oppo kind of. He has that oppo.
He flattens the bat
push
out.
It. Well. Yeah, but anyway, just looking at who was good in the top of the zone this year, Edman's important for that. So I think you could say, are we comparing stars? Well, the Dodgers have one more star, probably. Are we comparing bottom lineup? Well, the Dodgers kind of go toe to toe there. So, catchers. I like Will Smith. I like Alejandro Kirk. They're really, really close, but I'm going to go to those regular season numbers and say Dodgers lineup's a little bit better.
You make a very interesting point right there too, with the guys who are really good low ball hitters, and then interspersed between the guys that are really good high ball hitters. And the Dodgers do that really well. The Blue Jays also do that very well. With Dalton Varsho coming after Alejandro Kirk. Kirk is one of the best at the top of the zone. Dalton Varsho lives in the bottom. So those are like how are splitters going to work against Varsho, right? Because he can hit it off his top of his shoes.
It's gonna be hard on the pitcher to be like, okay, I was just trying to pepper the top of the zone. Now I gotta try and pepper the bottom. Max Fried loves to throw inside, and he was facing a team that loves the ball inside. And the first time he faced them, he had a hard time because he wanted to throw it inside, but he couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, your strength as a pitcher might also be the strength that the opposing hitter has. And, well, what
There's
happens?
very few pitchers who are like, I'm great at the top of the zone, and I'm great at the bottom of the zone.
Yeah, that's why everyone has two fastballs, because they need to be able to do that, or they off-speed pitches for one and heat fastballs for another. Like, that's usually how they run. But it's going to be interesting to see how a guy like Snell or the Dodgers versus, well, we can talk about it later, but for matchups. So I'm going to hold that. But yeah, it is. They both kind of do that. They both have lineups that are kind of hard to navigate, not just in a necessarily like this guy's a star, can hit everything type of way, just in a like type of hitter interspersing through, like, you have to think along.
I think that's why they really wanted to get Edwin. It was weird. They really targeted him. They gave him money. You know.
He does something specifically that they think fits into their system really well, and that fills in a gap. I mean, and he's a switch hitter, so and he plays all over the field. So those are all bonuses, but
some of those bonuses were fraying. I mean, he doesn't play that well all over the field now.
Yeah, but they, I think it's pretty obvious that just the flexibility, even on paper, takes a lot of stress off of roster
decision making
and decision making. Yeah,
100%. I think the diversity of approaches is something that both of these teams they did that on purpose. That's what makes their offenses go, even if the names in the back of the jerseys and some of the ceiling maybe on the Dodgers side is a tick higher. Let's take a look at some of the matchups that could define this year's World Series. There's some low-hanging fruit here. I think from a problem-solving perspective, we've seen each team that's matched up with the Dodgers have a very specific plan for how they wanted to handle Shohei Ohtani, because he's extremely dangerous and he's a lefty and he leads off. So you kind of have to start your pitching plan on any given day with what your options are against Shohei Ohtani. The thing that's kind of weird for me about the Blue Jays is they don't have the left-handed firepower out of the bullpen. They don't have left-handed starters in the rotation the way the Phillies do. They have different things they're going to have to try.
You are going to see Eric Lauer.
You think we're going to see Eric Lauer spotted in for at least one or two matchups?
It's either him or Flaherty.
Right.
So we've been talking about the Blue Jays. They obviously care about limiting repeat looks against relievers. The stat was the Mariners had 25 instances of 3 times one pitcher, one reliever against one batter. The Blue Jays had 10. The Dodgers have 1. Of course, the Dodgers, it's because the rotation, the way the postseason's gone. I understand that. But still, the 25 versus 10 means, and you actually have John Schneider saying, we put Brendan Little out there to limit the number of looks, that everyone got at Hoffman, etc. So if you put that into this situation and you're trying to figure out how they're going to pitch to Ohtani, that means you have your 3 lefties and you're going to use them all. So I think you're going to see Fluharty and Little and Lauer against Ohtani.
I think Little's a good matchup. Like, honestly, Little's stuff is probably lines up the best. It's just whether or not he can't be able to command it though. But he throws a hard sinker into a lefty, which lefty on lefty sinkers to down and into Shohei have worked, and then he's got that hammer curveball that's 87, that breaks away a little. Like, he's got the hard breaking ball that goes away from him, which is like what Tanner Scott was doing to him in the DS last year. They were just,
but you also just don't want to press the Brendan Little button over and over again, where it's
but he will definitely be
Ohtani,
one or two
game
of those.
6, Brendan Little, 3rd time, Placata.
No, Little's not a guy you want to see more than once or twice either. But I think between him and Lauer, they might be able to handle it. I don't know if I think Flaherty is going to be he's just young. Like it's one of he's thrown well. He's done a good job, but he's definitely like a multi-inning long guy, mop up, doesn't throw super hard, and he's just like a rookie. So it's just you want to.
And you may see somebody like Bassett, even though he's a righty, just because he has like 10 pitches, and maybe that, maybe that's a way to like just change looks on Ohtani,
But you're probably doing this just in relief after your starter goes through 2 times, maybe 3 if you've got a big lead, instead of throwing any of those guys as an opener, right? It's not quite built for that type of approach, which
they don't
the Brewers
have an
lean on
Ashby.
so heavily. Right. Little doesn't throw as hard, doesn't have any pitches.
It also didn't work.
It also did not work. Whether that was a failure process.
Ohtani again? Great. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, highly, highly stressful. So then you have to think about how the Jays' right-handed starters will try and navigate Ohtani at the top of the lineup. The good news is if you think about how the Dodgers like to build their lineup, then you're not giving up the platoon advantage to Betts and Smith. They'll probably move Freddie Freeman up to the 3 spot again because that's what they usually do when they're facing a righty. It's not easy. It's just a different way to have to navigate it.
Think that Gossman and Savage are actually decent righties to throw against Ohtani. I mean, they both have really good changeups. Yeah, both have really good splitters. And you don't have to worry that it's the same shape that you're seeing because the Gossman and Savage splitters are nothing alike. They don't come from the same spot. They don't do the same movement. They aren't good for the same reasons. So I think you could throw those guys. You might be surprised and be like, oh, Savage is seeing Ohtani 3rd time. But I think the reason would be, again, to limit looks, not to go to Little there every time and to use Little later in the game or whatever it is. So in that way, they might be all right.
I think the hammer the point home.
Freeman and
but
Betts.
But to hammer the point home, the Jays care enough about limiting looks where they're going to try a lot of different things. That is the expectation. It is not going to be Brendan Little's going to get this out for us every time. That is not going to be the way they
And to be fair to them, it didn't work with Little against Cal Raleigh. That's the beginning of this conversation is Little. You're trying to limit looks, so you're using Little instead of Hoffman against Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh hits the homer that basically wins them. Is it game 5? So some of it's not going to work. But to be fair to the Blue Jays, I don't think that there is a single reliever in this crew that you're like, you know what? I'm not going to mess with that. I don't care. I would throw Andres Munoz 3 times against George Springer. He saw George Springer 0 times, but I would throw Andres Munoz 3 times against George Springer because I think Andres Munoz is a cut above. Like that dude is really, really good. But I don't think the Blue Jays. Yeah, I know he should have done it. But I don't actually see anybody because Jeff Hoffman is 95.5 right now. He was 97 to start the season. I don't think Jeff Hoffman at 95.5, even though he's got a nice 3-pitch mix, he's been a pretty good pitcher. I don't think he's a cut above. I don't think I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep pressing this Hoffman button. If there's a time when I can finish a game without Hoffman, I will do it because I think this is a collection of pretty good relievers. None of them I think is elite.
But I think they've been doing that. I think it's pretty clear that they're like, we're going to use Hoffman when it's a safe situation, and hopefully we don't have. Because I'll be honest, I was just watching him even the other night. He had struck out the side. He misfired like 5 splitters. Like they were nowhere close. He hasn't thrown one in the strike zone.
They were deep counts, most of them.
Deep count. He went 3-2 to almost everybody, and just got some swing and miss from, frankly, guys that swing and miss a ton. Like at the top, he faced Rivas, and I like Dom Canzone, but he looked lost, absolutely lost in the playoffs. So I agree. It's definitely like I would take even Roki, who had one shaky outing and can be a little bit all over the place. At least his movement is like in the zone, out of the zone, even if he's trying to throw.
He looks
strike.
nasty. He's sitting.
It just looks crazy.
And they don't really have options. It's a little different in the Dodgers bullpen. I think they have clearly the elite guy, Sasaki, and if Sasaki has to face George Springer a 3rd time, I think they're not going to bat an eye. They're just going to do it.
Yeah, right. Well, I think he's, as a reliever, already shown himself to be much more like a Munoz type, more of an elite reliever where you're okay with that 3rd look because you feel like it's a fair matchup for you, even that 3rd time around. Let's talk about how the Dodgers staff will try to game plan for Vlad Jr. You were digging into the changes of Vlad over the course of the season, like how he how he's changed, how he's really heated up at the exact right time of the season. And look, Vlad's been a top 10 hitter basically since entering the league in 2019. It's hard to do that. Hard to just hit the ground running like that. He's got a 137 WRC plus during that span. It's 10th out of 418 hitters that have 1,000 plate appearances since then. But what's changed? What has Vlad Jr. done over the course of this year that's enabled him to do kind of maximum damage at the exact right time?
Yeah, I was trying to use my amateur scouting skills and freeze frame things and look at his swing, and it looks really similar. If there's anything, I feel like maybe his top half, he's bending a little bit better. So I think, and if there's any evidence of that, there's it's one of the better months for getting good tilt on pitches. He's kind of a flat swing guy, and he's bending over a little bit. But I couldn't get a still where I was like, see, especially because you're trying to freeze these frames and they're swinging, and you never know that that's the exact same part of the swing, Yeah. So it's these things are moving. It's really hard without numbers to describe them. So I can see the tilt is up a little bit. The big one is he's swinging harder this month than in any month of his career, at least since we've tracked it. So he's swinging harder. And then I put that together with where his extra base hits have been in the postseason and where they were during the regular season. And I had a little bit of an aha moment because in the first half of the season, he was looking over the heart of the plate. And you see this really kind of this eye of extra base hits, right? This just right over the heart of the plate, up and down, not too low, right? That's where he wants it. And then if you look over here at what he's done in the postseason, you see more of an M dash, where it's across the middle of the plate. So now it seems like, you put these two things together. How is he swinging harder? It's intent. I don't think he's done a weighted bat training in the middle of the season. And if it's intent, what he's doing is I think he's looking across a band middle and being willing to swing it inside and out more, as long as it's at the right level up and down, right? So he's, instead of looking really just middle up and down, he's looking sort of middle across. And I think that's working for him. I mean, you have a home run that was pretty far in that he's hit. He's hit balls that are a little bit lower than usual, some sliders that he hit for homers and doubles. So I think he's really locked in on a certain part of the zone. And he's being aggressive with intent, with more bat speed than ever. So if there's anything I could do, it wouldn't be that different from what I would normally try to do to him, which is you want to pitch him low, but this one suggests to me he might be able to sneak something high past him because he's kind of looking belt high, across. So, I was thinking the other day that maybe one of the modern pitches in baseball is the high slider. It's not a pitch that we used to see a high slider, and I think that some announcers still do this, but they reflexively say, "Oh, that's a hanger." And you're like, "No, did you see what his target was? He actually meant to throw that slider there." And I think, a high slider might actually work against him.
Especially if you're able to dot a fastball or something, or get him to take one for a strike. I feel like if you can elevate top rail of that zone, Snell's going to try it. So just watch him. If you can hit that top rail and he takes it, I think that tells you a lot about the types of things he's doing.
He's looking belt across.
He's looking belt across. And he's trying to handle in and out, because in the playoffs, especially, guys go to their best off speed pitch a lot. He's probably used to getting spun quite a bit, and so it's catching those balls before they break down is what he's getting well. But if you get it down there, he's going to ground out, right? And he's not swinging and missing. So it's one of those things where guys maybe.
But you saw some of those sliders were slightly down. They're just not all the way down. He's just
not all the way down. Yeah, he's just getting them. So he even in that plot, you still look down there, and it looks like he's just been tearing the cover up all, and you're super. You could be like, oh no, he's dialed in, but he's still not hitting the pitches he doesn't hit. Right? He's still not. Those are not his strength. All of a sudden, they're still there. It's just the hole starts to close a little bit, or become maybe a little less blue because he's fouling pitches off or something. So we've seen him foul off some good sliders down and away, and they're just chop, bounce on the plate, go foul. But now you're it's the playoffs. I got to change it up because I got him set up when you could just throw the next one. If it's a slightly closer, he might just ground it out. The adjustment means he's out now, right? Not that he's going to crush it. So that's something that maybe happens more in the regular season because the stakes don't seem as high and the pitcher's not like trying to, because there's a part of you that's always like, I got to do something extraordinary. Like you're always thinking that. And he takes advantage of that.
Vladdy out. I can't just take a ground ball.
Yeah. So you gotta assert your dominance or whatever. And he's taking advantage of that because he's the other way. He's like, I'm gonna assert my dominance and show you that I don't swing and miss as much because our whole team isn't, and that's an approach thing. And then once that's placed in your head and guys are still going for the swing and miss, you can kind of mess up their approach to you and get those pitches in the middle zone. But it is interesting because that first eye line that you mentioned, like Alejandro Kirk, still, that's his thing. Like edges, he struggles with up and down, up and then down to kind of third of the zone, Beltish. Like top third, 2/3, beltish, but all the way up in the middle, hammers it, and he struggles to kind of go with you in and out, like tilt forward and back. Vladdy has turned that on its head, and that's probably what's got him a lot of these pitches because that didn't show up until the playoffs.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does look like different heat maps, and it's a small sample in the postseason one, but that's what you're dealing with. But
it shows you intent, though. It can give you an idea of what he's trying to do, and that I think that's where sample size isn't as important when you can see a distinct shift in approach.
And I think it also speaks to I talked to an advanced scout about the kind of reports that he gives players, and he talked about like we always give them three time periods. We give them basically this is what the player has done all season. This is what he's done over the last month. And then we will still give them maybe a week or two, a really small one. And I feel like when you're in the playoffs, you might weight that really small one even more because you're like if he's done something, like just like we talked about pitchers being like Blake Snell threw more changeups in his last start than he'd ever thrown in any start, So like you can catch that if you do the weekly thing. You're like, oh, Blake Snell's really leaning in the changeup right now. If you do the monthly thing, you're like, a little bit of changeups. Do the yearly thing, you're like, yeah, he likes his changeup, but not that much, So like you really have to look at what's happening in the last week. And I was wondering, for in your experience, was that copacetic? Like you were like you saw 3 time periods. How did you treat that when you had 3 time periods of information that was given to you about a hitter?
It depends on what the differences are. Like I mentioned, does it show a shift in intent and approach, or does it show a shift in like are they just hitting what they always hit, just in a bigger number amount? Like has that circle expanded? Or something? Yeah, or is he hitting pitches that are different for what he was hitting before? A guy who did this amazing is all about how quickly these adjustments happened. Going back and forth with Cleveland version of Francisco Lindor was like there was a down and in and an up and away hot zone that he would just keep shifting, and then we would pitch the other one, and then like a month later we face him, and then he had shifted down there and we had to pitch him back to the other one, and like he knew that and we knew that, and we were like the bullpen specifically. So like it would be a difference between throwing him a ton of sliders for me or throwing him up and away fastballs for me because he has adjusted. He knows he can hit those 2 pitches well based on how he swings and whatever.
He has to have intent. He has to kind of anticipate that pitch.
So it would show the shorter period, like the last month or whatever, would show a distinct difference in like it'd be like he has 25% whiff rate up here, and then like for the last 2 months it'd be like 11% whiff rate. Like he's very clearly trying not to swing and miss at that pitch.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? But like that kind of stuff, you grab it, you make one slight adjustment, be like this spot is open or not open now. But for the most part, you would go off tendencies that because most of the time the tendencies, especially what they hit and what they don't hit. My theory
the bigger
is
sample. You'd rather the bigger sample.
The bigger sample generally is a bigger indicator of what they do naturally. A lot of it is like how their body moves and how their swing moves.
It's still true for Vladdy here. Like he's still not a great low ball hitter.
They can't change that quickly. Those are things that they can't change as quickly. Mechanics are harder to change to make things feel natural, but intent can change one day to the other. So if you're making an intent decision that maybe because these games, every game matters so much that a guy like Blake Snell going out there 50% changeup. Also, by the way, just to throw this out here, he's throwing them anywhere from like 78 miles an hour to 87 miles an hour, which was he threw one high 70s. Like, what was that? And it looked like he just did it on purpose. I'm like, what does he know right now. And that's an intent thing. So like if you saw that,
or
like,
he's just feeling
why is
the
he doing
changeup
that
really well, you know? Like
yeah, is he just feeling it, or did he see something against this team, and is that how he makes decisions? And then what would he see against us? And then you can make like we might see this from him, and then if you see it early, you can get on him. And I think that's what the Blue Jays are doing well. That's why I like this matchup.
And that's what I'm wondering about with the Blue Jays too, is how much are they going to look at the version of Snell we saw in game 1 of the NLCS. That was command that was as good as it gets for Blake Snell, right? You can't give him a higher command grade than he had in that start. He was putting the ball anywhere he wanted to throughout that start. But the mix was something we had seen at various points in his career before, especially in the playoffs, dialing back the fastball usage. He threw that four-seamer 27% of the time in game 1 against the Brewers. We know the Jays handle fastballs really well. So did the Jays go in looking for a mix similar to what the Brewers saw in game 1, or even what Snell used all the way back in game 6 of the 2020 ALCS? He did the same kind of thing, 28% four-seam usage there. So that seems to be his game plan in the most difficult of matchups. And it does seem to align with what you would want to think about doing against the Jays, given their fastball hitting tendencies.
So the Dodgers, from their starting pitchers, have gotten 40% fastballs. It's
still low.
It's still low. It's among the lowest. The Dodgers and the Blue Jays both at 40%, and then Cleveland only 33% fastballs from there. And I'm not counting cutters. I don't count cutters as fastballs anymore. I can't. I know that they are, but I can't count them because too many guys like Tanner Bybee throws a cutter that is a slider.
I would even say like Zach Wheeler's is a slider as well. Like I don't know, it's a velocity. If you throw a 96 and your cutter is 89, it's a slider. Like I don't care how it spins.
I need better. I need from Savant and from the sites out there. If you're listening, I need better differential between actual cutters and
Mike
cutters.
I know you haven't thought about differentiating pitches at all. It's not like every day you're the biggest boogeyman of your life, but do better.
or what we need is a new pitch classification.
Yeah. Bring the slow curve back.
Cut fastball. Yeah.
We need to see if we can get Mike Petriello on right now so we can have this conversation with him, just ambush him with it.
He doesn't want to hear from me.
We love Mike. We would never do that to Mike. I wanted to ask you guys about George Springer. I mean, pretty big adjustments this year. Just a different player. You could see it on Fangraphs, the back of the baseball card. Just a ton of power again. He's gone back to his first year in Toronto in terms of slugging in the mid 500s. He popped 32 homers this year, his highest total since 2019. Hit the big one that sent them through in the ALCS. What's so different about him? How has he changed? And knowing that you've got a different version of Springer out there, what's the most effective way to keep him from doing damage against you in his current form, Trevor?
Well, I think I think he's healthy, honestly. I think he's been just had little nagging things that where he's banged up a little bit, and it's as you get older, like those things just start cropping up more and more to the point where I think that's the same thing probably with Trinan right now. Is like he's like, yeah, I'm fine, but like I doubt he feels great, right?
Yeah,
like physically, like where he's like, well, I want the ball to go where I'm telling it.
Year.
Yeah. Like, and he's 37. So, and Springer's 36 or 7 as well. So, like, it just like things don't feel good, and he missed some time, and I think he's found a way to feel good. I think we saw with Harper this year too. He just like had that wrist thing, and I just think he just didn't feel great until most of the season. So, I think most of it has been that since he's been there. The motivation also comes from the team being much better as well. So he feels good. The team's going well. Those things kind of compound and snowball and roll downhill. The opposite happens to you. If you're not feeling great, you're less likely to be like, I'm going to go grind this out because the team's not really winning anyway. So you're like, all right, I need to take care of this. I think majority of it's that because his approach doesn't look much different to me. This looks like what George Springer was, in the Astros years, what you had to prepare for him. He's what a coin that is turned by Jeremy Hefner, coined by Jeremy Hefner, and a lot of people say it, but like he said it all the time, was George Springer's a rocking chair guy, meaning lean him back, lean him forward, lean him back, lean him forward, rocking chair, up and in, down and away. Like it's a classic archetype, but like up and in fastballs all day. If you can just hit the spot, he'll swing at it and he's going to pop it up to the catcher every time or swing and miss. Like that is, he has a big blue zone up there. That's why Kirby was trying to throw up there and everyone's trying to throw up there. No one was hitting the spot. No one was throwing strikes at all because down and in and up and away, he just hammers those things and he can sit on them. And if you can spin a slider and hit the little dot down and away in the strike zone, ground ball every time. Like Judge, like that's a hole. They physically can't hit that ball hard, and it's just about spoiling it so you can get another mistake. I went and looked at the frequency that Springer has seen in the playoffs, and he has seen very little up and in. It's all drifting down middle or down in middle, not quite getting up there, and that's why he's having such good playoffs as well. So it's all of that, and then he sells out for what he thinks he might get, right? So like, and he puts that in your head, and I think that is like he gets mistakes from guys because they're so worried about him selling out to one of the things they're doing that they make a mistake. And that's why he's so good in the playoffs, is because the pressure's the highest. It's guys that go right after him that have no problem with him at all. That's why we think Munoz, I think, is having success because he goes right after him. He doesn't like mess around with, I need to be really fine here. Just throw in this big circle up and in and throw in the big circle down and away, and you'll generally be fine. He probably won't get you. He just takes advantage of mistakes. He very rarely is hitting pitches guys are throwing there on purpose. And that works in the playoffs because guys make bigger mistakes. So I think he's just healthy and he's able to get the bat where he needs to go so he can sell out like he has in the past. Like he feels confident that his swing will get him there and he will do the damage. And when that feels good, then he just went back to bullying pitchers. And that's why he's got so many leadoff homers. It's just like, that's what's so interesting here too, because both guys have these like leadoff hitters that where you're already like, oh God, I hope today goes well. And then you have two guys who love leading off games with homers. So you're like, like that, we're going to know very quickly what tone is being set based on how those two guys face.
That's a weird little aside, because I've had some people be like, man, he's hit so many leadoff homers. Ohtani, like, why not have him bat second or third? But maybe there is something about tone setting where you're just like, bam.
It's pressure right away. There's
down.
So much pressure. You don't know how that day is going to be. Might have felt good in the pen. You don't know what's going to happen. That is one of the things that starting pitching is so like, that's why you see guys give up the homer and then settle. Because they're like, okay, got that out of the way. And that's happened like 4 times.
Also, they just face the top of the lineup that the top of the lineup's coming up in the top of the first. Like maybe you give up a run there and then you're
thinking about those 3 guys for the entire day, or actually for the 4 days. 4 days. Who's coming up, right? So that's why it's like it's as uncertain and as nervous as you will be like the 15 seconds before you throw the first pitch of the game.
Yeah, and here's some evidence that what you're saying is right, that he's healthy. George Springer, top 10 in bat speed increases, but if you look closely at the chart, what you see is that he was 72.7 in 2023, which is good bat speed. Then he went down last year, 71.9. That was the unhealthy year. I think that he was dealing with some stuff. But he goes up to 73.8 this year, and he's up in the second half. I think there's health, and then there's maybe a possible weighted bat program in there. I mean, if you're going up 2 ticks, I would suggest that there's a weighted bat program in there. And then lastly, I think that's the marrying of the bat speed and the intent process. And I think that one thing that George Springer doesn't get enough credit for is he's pretty heady. He's like a mental Rolodex guy, and he's like, I think you're right when he's like, this is what this guy's going to try and do to me, and so I'm going to. And like we saw that with the Bizzardo thing, honestly, because Bizzardo tried to do the same thing 3 times against him, and Springer was like, dude, I see you. I know what you're doing. And Bizzardo was only like an inch or 2 off of where he really wanted to be, but Springer was like, I can hit that.
Yeah, it was just also just a really dumb pitch. I don't know what we're doing here. I genuinely don't understand the.
I would have had Brash out there at the very worst. If it's not, I wanted Munoz, but
either one. But like bring Munoz in, and then ninth. You have
Brash
to get to the ninth
with Springer.
Bring in Brash.
You have to get to the 9th.
Yeah. And also of the 3 guys, you've second and third one out. It'd be not. You don't have a double play in order either. So like maybe a strikeout would be good. Who's the least likely to get a strikeout that's not looking on a sinker away? Because Bizzardo's gotten a lot of those, but like he's not getting tons of swing and miss. The way that the other 2 guys roll out of bed and they're like 50% whiff rate. Like that's what we do. So like
how
maybe,
bad would it have been to have Brash go out there, throw like 4 straight sliders, lose him, 4, 5, 6 straight sliders, lose him on a 3-2 count. He's walked, and then
literally the scariest slider for any righty in the major leagues will say, what righty slider do you not want to see ever? It's Matt Brash. They hate it because he's crazy. I don't know if you saw the grip, but no one can grip the ball like he does. He's got like a broken middle finger. That's how he throws it. It's crazy. I can't even do it. So like he's one of the most unique pitches ever. I know it wasn't as sharp as it's been in the past in the playoffs, but it was quite as sharp the night before. I understand that he pitched. Munoz. You should have went to Munoz. Anyways. Yeah. I agree with you with the Springer thing. I think that he is a tone setter. Everyone's following him. He's very heady. And what he reminds me of, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if these two guys were pretty like this with the Astros, but Michael Brantley was like, played this game very like obviously with you. He's like, I know what you're doing. Yeah. Like he looks at you like, I know what you're doing. To the point where I used to shake as many, Brantley and I'd be like, just all day because I wanted to know, am I shaking all the way around? He knew what I was doing to the point where I would double up on it and then I would shake, and then he'd call timeout and I'd go back in and I'd shake 4 more times and then throw the pitch that he originally, like to the point where he forgot which pitch he thought I was going to throw, and then I threw that one. And I got him a couple times at the end, but a couple times in spring training, both times. He got me both times and kind of smirked at me like, he tried to do the whole, which cup is it under? Which cup is it? He's like, is that cup, idiot? So like Springer gives me that vibe. Like I get the same vibe from him, like he knows. And I understand there's a thing about that there because he did know for a while there, but like still, it still feels that way. And it felt like that way before that too. Like when he was a rookie, before they were doing all that stuff in Astros, that is kind of that's his juice. He gets you feeling like he knows and he's leading off the game. So it's like, that is not great for a pitcher. And if he can set the tone that way, then he hands it off to the next guy. And their lineup is definitely follows his lead. Vlad said this too, and I talked to him on the radio when we had a minute over when they were in Seattle. Is like, what does he mean, you guys? He's like, he definitely is like, all right, your turn. Like he turns and looks at us. So like we take that. Everyone feels that. He just leads us. He's the front of the line.
Obviously aren't going to break down every single matchup up and down the lineup. I mean, how the Jays pitch to Freddie Freeman is going to be critically important for the series as well. It's just don't make mistakes. Like that's the the general advice on that.
Mookie, bat speed went up in the second half, went on a bat speed training program. So he's also swinging harder. And I actually picked him in one of the previews as an X factor. I know that's further on down the rundown. Maybe we can smooth things around a little bit because
we'll smush it.
If I could sneak, I know Mookie Betts is nobody's X factor and like, oh, nobody thought of this, but I just think that he's forgotten. He's forgotten at this point where people are not game planning as much hard around him, and they think, he said this is the last season for me, but he did regain some of his bat speed. His slugging was up in the second half. He was much closer to Mookie Betts than we knew. So, if there could be an X factor who is a future Hall of Famer, like it's Mookie Betts.
Yeah. He's not the same player late in the year that he was in the beginning of the year when he was ill. Like that became very clear over the course of September.
Real one, as the Cryon shows, was the Jays bullpen command against the Dodgers patience, just because the Jays had the third worst location plus amongst bullpens in the regular season. And I was breaking down Brandon Little. I was surprised because I've seen some vitriol towards Brandon Little online, and I thought it was just some Cal Raleigh-based nonsense. I'm like, Cal Raleigh is pretty good. But when I looked at him, I realized Brandon Little cannot command any of his fastballs at an above-average rate. And he can command his cutter a little bit, but it's his worst pitch. And what he did in the second half was go to the cutter a lot because he needed to, because he was falling behind in counts, and that made him predictable, and people were able to hit the cutter. They can't hit his sinker and his curve as much because those are really good pitches, but he can't command them as well. So, you can see this already in your mind's eye. Max Muncy against Brendan Little. And, you would, as a Blue Jays fan, be like, lefty, Little is nasty. This is good, except Max Muncy does not chase. Will Smith does not chase. Even somebody like Alex Call does not chase. Mookie Betts does not. This is the team that does not chase. So Little is going to get into trouble, and we'll just have to probably throw his nasty pitches more into the zone than he wants to, because I don't want him to go to the cutter just because he can command it better. So, that's I think the circle that I have on is like the sort of 7, 8, 9 against the bullpen there. I think that they might be able to do some damage.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting call out on Little specifically, because that would be the lefty-lefty matchup that you think would neutralize Muncy, when every other matchup you have, if you're mostly right-handed, that favors Muncy. That sets up Muncy to be a difference maker in the bottom third of the order. I mean, talk about a great guy to have hitting 7th in your lineup. He'd hit 4th or 5th for most clubs, right? So Muncy just jumps off the page to me as someone that could have a huge series. If the Jays are expending excess energy focusing on that top half of the lineup, you just don't get enough of a breather, right? And Muncy, I think, has a lot of favorable matchups throughout this series. How about you, Trevor? An X factor for you for the series?
I'm fascinated by the idea of the how pressure and momentum is shifting. I think maybe I'm super keyed into this right now just because 12-year-old me was just watching the Mariners the whole time, and they were just constantly in games where it was just seesawing back and forth, and they went to the final game in every series. So it was I'm like, how are the players feeling about this stuff? And what I dug into was the concept of shutdown inning. I've talked about it before. It is literally when your team scores runs in the next half, are you able to give up 0? Like that, keeping whatever happened if you take the lead. And the most important ones are obviously if you take the lead or come back and tie the game. So if you're able to tie it and then keep it tied, you're keeping the momentum in your side. And the longer the momentum is on in your dugout, the harder it is for the other team to come back, to take it back. The longer you have it, the harder it is to take back, because people start to believe this is what's happening. So this happened a bunch. Mariners did it a ton of times. It was driving me crazy. But in these playoffs, and I don't actually know. I think I'm right here. I didn't look into the final game yet, but the Mariners did have a shutdown inning, and then they didn't get one later in the game, in the game 7. But the team that has scored second, meaning the team that during the regular season, everyone scores first. Scoring first is huge. Like everyone's got a positive record when they score first in the game. That's usually, or take the lead at some point in the game. That is usually a good indicator that you're going to win. In the playoffs, the team that has scored second in these opportunities has won every single time. When the momentum was grabbed one team and then immediately given back, I think the pendulum's swinging super far to the other way, like farther than it was originally. And then it's harder for you to get that back unless you respond again, which then becomes harder to do because you're facing the best pitchers. So you have to take advantage of, I know it's obvious, take advantage when you score, but do the opposite is becoming really, really, really important. So the nature of these two lineups and their ability to, 1, hit home runs, and 2, string, have put together a crooked number, meaning a couple runs in one inning, doing it all at once, going through the lineup once or something. If the team that is able to do that and then go and either, even if you get in a situation where there's guys on base and that momentum is building again, and then you cut it off, the chances you win that game go way up. And that is what I'm going to be paying attention to, because both teams score like that. So if that is your strength, are you able to hold on to that momentum? That is going to be really interesting because of the way both these teams also are able to respond. They're good at that as well and putting pressure on the other pitcher. So I pay attention to pitching. Pitching in the playoffs is very hard to do because it's so, it's a game of inches. And when you're so tight all the time, and so loud, and you make mistakes. Mistakes just are big and glaring, and everyone remembers the pitcher that messed up. Brendan Little, even if they win the World Series, maybe
somebody's still mad about Brandon Little against Colorado.
Someone's still mad about Brendan Little, but that's what's remembered, the last game, right? People are going to remember Bizzardo here forever,
right?
Like that, and that's unfortunately because he was so good, but that's just the way it's going to happen. So the same thing is gonna happen here. So I'm just paying attention to how are the starting pitchers, because those are going to be the important ones in the first 3 innings. If their team is able to grab some runs, how then do they respond to that? And if they're able to throw a 0 and hold on to that momentum, I feel like it's just so important in this situation. That's what I'm paying.
Yeah. When I hear something like that, I think of a couple things. One is that, I think of lineup factors where if one team scores a bunch of runs, they're I think they're most likely to have gone through the best of the lineup, right? The best part of the lineup. And so then I think it's very likely in the next inning that you're gonna again face the heart of line of the other team. So,
especially early in the game when it's already lined up.
right? So when it's still lined up like that, so if you can shut down that other part of the heart of the lineup, then the next inning is probably going to be the bottom of the lineup. So now you've got like 2 innings, and now and then because I'm trying to explain it from this is like a non-momentum argument. This is like how lineups and pitchers work, right? Because I'm trying to explain away momentum because I don't know if I believe it exists. However, I will give you this. In the playoffs, with it being so loud, I think momentum can exist in the form of the crowd. Oh, 100%. So what you do when you shut that team down, especially if you're like on the road, you actually quiet people.
Let me just maybe this will help. It's how the belief that one outcome can happen and other changes for the people playing the game. So if you can convince if you can convince the other team that it's going to be really hard to come back and win the game, that builds over time.
You
that's
strangle
real.
Their hope a little bit.
There's doubt. When doubt comes in, it's harder to execute because that's
strangle their hope.
Because the game we talk about, the game's always like it's a game of this, and if there's doubt, the chances that this being a little bit off goes way up. That is just true. I think we all can say that that's true in our own lives. So if you can, and the fans being part of it too, if they start to doubt it, people absorb, and we saw that in Seattle. That's why I think like them having Humpy win the stupid race in the 15th was genius. It was genius because everyone's like, we still believe because they were like, everyone was zombies. I was at home a zombie and like a genius. And then you know what they did? They went to the well again and they did it in the CS, and then and everyone's like, no, don't do it again. And then look what happened. Look what happened.
Got to manage Humpy correctly. Use that button one time.
Can't go to the well twice, man. Once it's an ace in the hole.
I wish I had an X factor that was as interesting as Humpy. I have stolen base opportunities, and it's not because these teams run a lot. Of the teams that made the postseason, only the Tigers stole fewer bases in the regular season than the Dodgers and Jays. But what we noticed in the ALCS, the Mariners could pick their spots. They're a little more aggressive. The Jays are a team you can run on. Gossman, 17 stolen bases allowed in 193 innings. Not a ridiculous number, but just enough where you can choose to run against them. If you see Bassett in a multi-inning relief role, he allowed 14 in 170 innings. Late innings, this blew my mind when I saw it earlier in the postseason. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Trevor, 19 bases allowed in 62 2/3. I mean,
that's Adam Ottavino numbers there.
That's pretty much an automatic green light for anybody that's healthy on base against Dominguez in a close game if you need it, right? And I wonder if we're going to see a couple of perfectly timed steals in the closer games of the series that actually make a difference. And it's just not expected because it's not necessarily the DNA of how these two teams got to this spot.
Yeah, you could think of like Edman, Call, Betts. Ohtani's obvious because he had the 50-50 season, so you're always like looking over on him. But Betts has been stealing less. Call doesn't steal that much, but these are guys, Edman's stealing less and less, every year. But these are guys that can do it, have done it, and could do it in the right opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and a couple of the starters for the Dodgers. I mean, Snell gave up 6 and 61 1/3 in the regular season, so you start kind of stretching that out to a full season workload. That's similar to what Gossman gives up, so you can run a little bit on Snell, even though he's a lefty. I know they picked off was that Durbin in the series against the Brewers, but you could run a little bit on Snell. You could run on Glass now. That's always been true. 10 and 90 1/3 in the regular season on him. Trinan is like their version of Dominguez, actually worse. 11 in 26 2/3. Keep Blake Trinan as far away from these matchups as you possibly can if you're the Dodgers. Like, nothing good's going to happen if Blake Trinan is pitching in leverage in multiple games of the series.
Nope. I'm waiting for Alejandro Kirk to steal a base. I mean, we already have the second slowest guy in the league with 30. I mean, I don't think Kirk could have 30, but maybe like 26. Right? Come on, go for it. You know who I think the most likely guy? I think this is going to become like the cerebral guys stealing bases. I could see like Springer going for one. I could see Max Muncy trying to take an extra base.
The bad knee.
Yeah, the guys with bad wheels. I mean, Bo Bichette is supposed to be
Freeman,
back.
Bo, maybe. Like, I thought Freeman's ankles are torn up, but maybe
not
he's
Freeman.
feeling okay.
I think Muncy takes one because he has a history of just because he's like, oh, you're not paying attention to me. I'm going. Like, and taking that shot. He is more of the Naylor type of guy. Now, I don't know if he should be jumping to try to block a double play. But in his defense, that never works. And I was blown away it worked this time. Yeah, or, a guy maybe, I think it's the mid-level guys that are being straight up ignored that can take one, like an Ernie Clement or, I don't know. Barger isn't very fast, but Jimenez, like maybe. So,
but Barger's at least young, so he's not in like the bottom.
I think
Jimenez,
the
you're
average
paying
speed
attention to
guys.
Jimenez though, because Jimenez has I think put 30 on a regular season record before. He's done that before.
Varsho too, you're paying attention to. Like guys who are outfielders or middle infielders, you just naturally just assume, even if you don't know. It'll be interesting to see because Ohtani really hasn't run. So like, who knows? He's gonna be on first a lot.
Varsho like looks faster than he is because he has the torso of like a 6-foot man, and then the legs of a 5'6" man.
Short legs, so high effort.
He's a grown baby, guys. It's
so
okay.
when he runs, the legs are just going.
Yeah, he's got short legs.
He looks like remember American Gladiators with the hand bike back in the day? You get someone that was good on the hand bike, and you have to like use a lot of effort to get moving on that thing. Varsho looks like he's on a hand bike when he's running.
Yeah.
I mean, I look ridiculous when I run. I'm not actually. You're right. He looks like he's moving even faster than he actually is. There's the opposite. Like the tall, fast guys sometimes look like they're just gliding out there because they're not.
Yeah, I think Ohtani doesn't get enough credit for being like ridiculously fast.
Yeah,
although maybe he does with the 50-50. I know, but
I think he gets plenty of credit.
Yeah, he gets plenty of credit. But early on when he was a rookie, I was like, this dude is fast.
Yeah.
Got one more big picture question before we get to some predictions for the series. I mentioned this up top. You get some comps to the current Dodgers rotation to 90s Braves rotations, and specifically the 95 Braves. And I went back and just for the context of where they were in their career, had to remind myself of how old each of those guys were back then. Greg Maddux was 29. Tom Glavine was 29. Smoltz was 28. Avery was the young guy at 25. Merker was the 5. He's 27 back then. So comparing that to the current Dodgers, Snell's 32, Yamamoto's 26, Glasnell's 31, Ohtani's 30, Emmett Sheehan, if they were going to use a 5, is probably their 5, he's 25. So the Dodgers rotation's a little older, and I think when I started breaking it down, the era and the health of the Dodgers rotation this year highlights the key difference that Yamamoto, 173 and 2/3 innings in the regular season, was matched by all 4 Atlanta starters in that season because Maddux was 209 and 2/3. Glavine was 198 and 2/3. Smoltz was 192 and 2/3. Avery was 173 and a third. Kent Merker, their 5, went 143, which would have been second on the 2025 Dodgers in innings pitched. Again, injuries, eras, a lot changes. But I think where this question gets interesting is the accomplishments. Greg Maddux won the Cy in 95 for the 4th consecutive season. That was his 6th consecutive Gold Glove. I think that was probably peak Maddux in 1995. As good as he was at any point in his career, that was peak Maddux. No one in this Dodgers rotation has that on their resume. Snell has 2 Cy Youngs, and I think maybe if you said Yamamoto could be more like the Maddux if you want to count achievements in Japan, which you should. 3 Triple Crowns before he came over. I think he has the stuff where we get to the later parts of his career, we're going to look back and say, yeah, he got a couple of Cy Youngs. That wouldn't be all that surprising. So if you said, yeah, okay, Snell's more like the Glavine, Yamamoto's kind of like the Maddux, Glass now on a per inning basis, definitely not the durability of Smoltz, but they do kind of hold up from a skills perspective, even though like 1-to-1, if you lined them up, you'd find yourself kind of arguing each side having a better option in each spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one thing to say that like maybe these 4 in this moment are as good as those 4 were in a certain moment. I think you can make a better argument that that's the case because Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani, and Yamamoto seem to be at the top of their games, have amazing stuff. Their strikeout, they probably double the strikeout rate of the Braves. Again, that's a different era situation. But I think it's another thing to say that these 4 will produce 3 Hall of Famers like that last 4 did, And I think that the problem is, even though you mentioned that the eras are different, I looked at what the Braves even with Avery, what the Braves quad had done until age 32. And Maddox, before the age of 32, had 2,800 innings. Smoltz had 2,400. Glavine had 2,400. Even Avery, who fizzled, had 1,500. Blake Snell has 1,100. Glasnow has 700. And they're of that same age.
Innings.
Huh?
Glasnow has 700 innings.
700 big league innings.
So even when you talk about the difference in eras, I think it'll be hard. Like if Glasnow ends his career with 1,500 innings, which is double what he's done so far, it'll be hard to vote him into the Hall of Fame. So I think you can say that these are very good rotations, but I think it is a long shot to say that this Dodgers rotation will produce 3 or 4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Snapshot wise, sure. Right.
Yeah.
Like in terms of going into World Series. They're pretty comparable in like how good you feel about the options you have and their track records. But, comparing these also, I just want to point out one thing. I was like, someone's like, when I read this, when I read this, it said Greg Maddux 209.2 innings. One Cy Young. I was like, I thought he threw like 350 innings every year. I thought that.
Yeah, that's
based on how we talk about him. I'm like, I thought he threw 300 innings for 31 years straight.
That's back in the 70s.
That's even low. Like that's like what Zach Wheeler did last year. Like, well, that's normal. And Smoltz didn't even get to 200. What are we even like? I thought this was the golden era. Anyway,
but they did do it more year in and year out. They had a lot more.
They did. It was every single year, and there's like right now there's like 3, 4, or 5 guys that get over 200 innings every year. They had their whole rotation almost do it. So like that is a different thing. And also Maddox doesn't need to throw as many innings when there's other guys also going deep into games. So like that also matters. But I would say snapshot wise, like if we were taking a series where those guys were thrown against these guys, it would be pretty close. It would be pretty close. It would be really interesting. And you also have the note in here that the Braves offense just didn't score a ton of runs that year when they were really good. So that would factor in as well. But like, yeah, it would be an awesome matchup to see, especially with the types of pitchers they are and the strikeout numbers and all that kind of stuff, or how those guys would fare in the way the game's played now. It would be, I think it's much closer than people would think.
Yeah. Give me that sim. Like, I think that's the appropriate way to frame it really is like in this point in time, if you were going to put them 95 Braves into a series against the 2025 Dodgers, that's where it gets the most interesting. When you start stretching it out over the career, there's too many things that start to break down.
This is what we need AI to actually be able to do. Like, this is one of the use cases. Sim this whole thing, please.
Yeah, the Braves lineup would cost them the game probably.
92 WRC plus for the 95 Braves.
Is that like the Jeff Blauser and Mark Lemke infield?
Oh yeah, you know.
I remember those days. But also, I'd like to just finish off by thinking about it stylistically. I don't know that there is actually, in terms of style, I don't know that there is a Greg Maddux. I think that we've trended towards the Smoltz and Avery, actually. Even Glavine, is Snell like Glavine? They both lefties with great changeups, but Glavine threw like 90, 89, 90, and was like, really about extending the strike zone and kind of like, it was all about command, I thought. So if there is anywhere that like we are stylistically, I think we are in the world of Smoltz and Avery. Power curveballs, power fastballs, Smoltz was splitty, 4-seam slider. Like there's a ton of pitchers like that right now. That's actually kind of where Ohtani, fits in, maybe more offerings now that we're, everyone does multiple fastballs. But one last thing, where has Ohtani's splitter gone? I want to, that's an X factor for me. I want to see where that's gone, because he's throwing like 6-7 times a game. He used to throw it, twice that. So maybe he just doesn't need it. Maybe it hurts.
Doesn't have the feel yet. Saving it for a wrinkle. A lot of possibilities.
Yeah, could be a wrinkle.
Could be the wrinkle. Predictions for the series, the least important part of the show, but Trevor's been landing a lot of predictions. You even kind of jokingly, I think this was jokingly suggested that Ohtani was going to have a 3-homer game when you're talking about him not getting moved out of the top of the lineup. I don't know if that was meant to be an actual prediction, but it was a thing you said that unfortunately for me came true.
It was a throwaway comment.
Yeah. I didn't go all over social like reposting that, but it was a pretty hilarious throwaway comment.
I didn't listen to that game, or I didn't watch it because I was watching the Mariners game, and I had to run to the grocery store, and so I get back in, Sirius XM's on, and it's like Shohei Ohtani comes out to the plate, and he's got 2 home runs and 10 strikeouts. And I just went, oh my God. And then literally, first pitch, it's a deep drive. I'm like, there's no way. This guy's so, I'm like, oh my God, the internet's going to be crazy about this.
Yeah.
And they were. They were, and, salary cap, we need it now.
It was deserved. Yeah, that was the response. Yeah, we need the salary cap. Not the answer. Team games, and we'll even do MVP too.
I have Dodgers in 6, 4-2. And the 2 wins that the Blue Jays have are high. They score a lot of runs, and it's not particularly close like they have been the whole time. But I think they're going to get outpitched in those other 4. And MVP. Ooh, this is good. It's never. Well, I mean, I know it was Ohtani last round, but it's never the big guys. It's going to be Edmund or Teoscar. I'm going to go Max Muncy.
No, I was
There
fine,
you go.
fine. I should have made my prediction first.
Yeah, you should have. You're
Idiot.
right. You should have.
Such a stupid lead host.
I'm going to push it a little bit further. Dodgers in 5. And Mookie Betts. Just going with that bat speed, the winning team, I could see him just stringing a lot of hits together.
I've been leaning 6 a lot. So I'm gonna stay. I'll stay Dodgers in 6. I like the Muncy call because it usually is one of the second tier guys. But I will go chalk. I'll say we'll have a great Ohtani performance. I do think the game that I'm most confident the Jays are going to win of the 2 wins is the Glasnow start. I have no specific reason why, other than to say Glasnow is often very good for 5 innings. I say this as someone who really likes Tyler Glasnow. I think that's the game where I feel most confident the Jays are going to see a lot of relievers. That's only a good thing for the Jays. I hope my predictions are laughably wrong. That would be wonderful. But I'm going super chalk. Dodgers in 6. Ohtani, World Series MVP.
I'd love to see 7 again. 7 was fun. Just just like it's going to happen.
Yeah, so fun.
Either way.
I just want it
It was
back
sad
and
for some
forth
people,
too.
but,
I want it to
yeah.
be constant back and forth. No one gets more than a 1-game lead at any given time in the series, and it goes 7. Just a complete tug of war slugfest. Little bit of everything. Couple high scoring games, couple low scoring games.
1-0.
Full on baseball coverall. That's what I actually want.
Some
to
weird
see happen.
heroes that we're not expecting. Yeah, I want all that.
That's what I want. And to utter some of those
IKF.
weird heroes, good news. We've got Mitch Bannon and Fabian Ardaya joining us on the Friday show. So the World Series preview rolls on. We got a 2-parter. That is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, putting this episode together. If he didn't draw jury duty, thank you to me if Brian drew jury duty and could not get on jury duty. I have to produce it myself. But that's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.